Hello everyone, and welcome to the behind-the-scenes video for Mockingbird. It's not out yet as of filming this, so I don't know how it's doing. I don't know how it's performing. I don't know how many of you have chosen to listen to all 6 minutes and I believe 8 seconds of it. But if you're watching this, I would assume that you have. I would certainly assume that you have watched it. So, yeah, let's talk about it. Let's dive in and talk about what this whole weird little song is about and where it came from, and yeah, kind of the inspirations and whatnot behind it. So the last song, this is kind of a continuation of that process. As we talked about in that video, over the last couple of years, I was let go from my positions at churches, and because of that, did a lot of reevaluating of my own spiritual beliefs, my own practices, my own way of existing and being in the world. And a lot of that kind of upended a lot of different things in my life. And so it was a massive loss of community, a loss of job, a loss of purpose, a loss of all kinds of different things. And so this song kind of reflects the anger that comes out of grief, in the stages of grief. By Kubler-Ross, anger is certainly one of them, and I think that anger has felt like a constant companion over the last few years as I've dealt with being let go from the church and my way of being in the world sort of changing and evolving. So this song was written to illustrate a lot of that. And a lot of the places that anger came from is as I started to re-examine who I was and how I'd been living my life up until this point. And I realized that a lot of the ways that I spoke, a lot of the things that I did, a lot of things that I said were so heavily edited to stay in the confines of the tradition, that I didn't really understand my own voice, didn't really know who I actually was or am as a person. When you're in that world, there's this idea that your heart is deceitful and that you are a sinful person. We talked a little bit about that in the last song and how I was kind of pushing back against that. But one of the results of pushing back against that is you suddenly realize everything that I've said and done has been run through this filter. And this filter was not authentic to me. Like, I remember being in churches and working at churches and saying things that I felt were wrong, that I felt were false, that I felt were not true, but had this "the heart is sinful above all else" thing in the back of my head. And so I gave the party answer, right? I said what I was expected to say. I said what was theologically accurate. I said what was going to keep me in the tribe. And then when I was suddenly ousted from the tribe, I realized I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how to trust that voice. I didn't know how to speak with my own voice. I had always been speaking through a filter. And so the anger came up when I realized that I'd spent so long denying myself and being hard on myself and beating up on myself and not allowing myself to actually be, but trying to force myself into what this system said that I ought to be. And that I never got a chance to be an authentic person. And while a lot of this album is about kind of that process of becoming that more authentic person, that more authentic self, this song is specifically about the anger that comes from realizing that has been robbed from you, that has been taken from you. So that's what the song, in my mind, is about. That's what I wrote it to be about. That's what I think it's about when I listen to it. But as I've said in every video explaining every song, what I think it's about is completely irrelevant. Whatever you think it's about, whatever makes you feel good and happy and whole about that song, then that's what it's about. It's about whatever it is you want it to be about. So lyrically, we kind of are continuing on from the last song. We have this he character, when I felt him on my skin, those sorts of lyrics, and that character is very similar to the character from the first song. It's this personification of myself, of my actual voice, of my authentic self kind of coming through. So when I talk about in this song, he as an other. It's sort of taking that part of myself that's always been there, that's always had things to say, and putting it outside of myself and referring to it in that way. So that's what the he is. It is actually a representation of my authentic self, a representation of me. And the lyrics, again, similar to the last one, there's a lot of sexual undertones in this song, and I do think a lot of that comes from, I feel like there was a lot of sexual repression in the church. I feel like purity culture really did a number on me, and so wanting to play in that space and sort of use some of that forbidden language of sexuality to communicate what I'm trying to say was certainly intentional. And so that's where a lot of those types of lyrics kind of came from. There's also a lyric in there that's that when I opened up my mouth, the first line of the song, I think it repeats somewhere else in the verse, but that is in reference to there is a song that I used to sing all the time as a worship pastor that I really enjoyed because I think it's a very well written song, and a lot of the songs in the church are not well crafted. I think this one is, for whatever reason, but it is called "You're My Champion." It is by Dante Bowe. And if you are in that world and familiar with those people, Dante Bowe has also had his struggles with the church and his own kind of being pushed out and ostracized from it. I don't think he's at the same place that I am by any means, but it was an interesting, I wanted to kind of make that connection. There's a video floating around online of me back in my churchy days doing that song with a group called Worship Mob, and I'm frankly still proud of that piece. I think that it was performed well and it was executed well. I don't believe a damn word of it, but I mean it was good and it was fun and I enjoyed doing it. And so it was kind of fun to tie those two realities together. Later on in the song, it obviously makes a much more obvious tie into church music when it drops into that Amazing Grace section. Amazing Grace is a fun song to sing. Everyone knows it. It's ubiquitous. It's got a good melody. It's got that idea that I am just a wretch and a fallen, bad being from birth. Yeah, we don't need that. We don't need that. It's gross and it's icky. But I put it in the middle of the song as a callback to that reality, as a callback to this is what I used to think. This is how I used to be. And then it changes when it hits that was blind, but now I see. And it drops into that really long instrumental section where most of you probably turned the song off. But that was to illustrate this, like, I thought I had it right. I thought I had the answers. I thought I had it together. I thought I was being authentic. And as soon as my eyes were opened up to the fact that I wasn't, I sort of descended into this angry, depressed, chaotic miasma. And that's sort of what that middle section is intended to convey. I was blind, but now I see, and what I see is not great. What I see is the way that the church has hurt people, the way that the church has hurt me, the way that this belief system has hurt people, the way that this belief system continues to perpetuate violence, continues to perpetuate othering, continues to perpetuate harm in the world. And just the struggle of knowing that I was a part of that, and the struggle of realizing that I don't even know who the fuck I am anymore. So it descends into that kind of undulating sea of sound is kind of how I put it, which is why there's whale noises in it, because why wouldn't there be whale noises in it? And then it builds up at the end, and that was very much to me a representation of this kind of explosive anger, building and building under the surface and building under the surface until it just erupts. And that's where we get to that final chorus where I am using a vocal style that I have never used in anything that I've ever released before. That kind of distorted, guttural, metalcore, screamy type vocal. Yeah, I've never used that in any other project that I've been a part of. I'm in a punk rock band where that would be completely appropriate, but I've never used it there. But it felt like the right choice. It felt like that was what was going to communicate that anger best, was to use a vocal style that was very aggressive and very angry sounding. I don't really know how to do it, so it took a lot of takes and a lot of editing in the studio to make it sound halfway decent. But yeah, I wanted that anger and that rage to kind of come through, because one thing that my family has asked me over and over again for the last 2 years is, why are you so angry? And it's hard to express exactly why, and I'm hoping that in some way this song can answer those questions for those people. Musically, there's a couple little fun things in here that I'm really proud of. The whole song is in E minor. It stays in kind of that minor feel, so it's got kind of that dark, broody feel to it, until we get to the Amazing Grace line, where it shifts into G major, and it keeps that kind of more light, airy, happier feel through the first pass through Amazing Grace. And then what I did, and again, this is music theory nerd stuff, I just appreciate that I did. I got cut off there, sorry. I flipped the chords to minor again. The melody of Amazing Grace stays the same, but the chords underneath it switch to minor, which kind of creates this unsettled, like, we're going somewhere, but it starts feeling a little bit darker, and then it descends into that more chaotic part. Yeah, which I was proud that I found that little trick, and so there you go. I've shared that with you. This one, it was written differently than a lot of songs that I've written before. Sorry, I had to scroll down my notes. If you have seen anything that I've done these types of videos before, you know that normally I like find a little melody that I like and I record it on my phone and then I put it. But I didn't do that for this one. This one started out as an experiment. I'd been listening to a lot of Sleep Token, one of my favorite bands ever. And I decided, I was kind of in a creative rut, and I was like, I'm just going to try to integrate some of these things that I like from that band, and kind of blend it with my own style and see what we come up with. And so that's how I started working on it and plucking away at it. And then as I kept plucking away at it and kept writing, I was like, I actually like this. This is good. So it started off in that very experimental, we're just going to play around. And then I ended up really enjoying it and deciding that this was something that needed to be part of the project and needed to be put out and for people to hear it. So I don't have a cool cell phone recording to share with you, unfortunately. If I did, I would put it right here, but I don't. The visuals for the song are tied directly to the name, Mockingbird, which should have obvious implications there. The Mockingbird just creates sounds that other things around it makes, and I felt like in a lot of ways I was just mimicking things that I was told or repeating things that other people, and not using my own voice. So that's kind of where that came from. So the Mockingbird kind of came to like bird imagery in a lot of the countdown, and the birds have little X's over their eyes because there's this idea that that part of me is no longer with us. We've tried to not kill that part, but that's certainly what the artwork implies, but to give that part what it actually needs and to give it sort of the love that it's after. The lyric video, I filmed it in. I didn't have time, so I just got a bunch of stock images of birds. There's no further meaning to any of the visuals in the lyric video. However, during the chaotic musical part, again, if you got that far, I put in a bunch of my favorite quotes from Anatole Frank's Revolt of the Angels, which I've mentioned in the last video was a big inspiration for this whole project. So I put some of those in there just to give y'all something to look at other than birds when it gets to that part of the lyric video. So that's it. That's Mockingbird. That's how I wrote it. That's why I wrote it. I hope that you enjoyed it. Like I said, I'm recording this before it's been released, so I don't know where we are. I don't know if we've hit goals, but even the small support of you watching this means a ton. The small support of listening once means a ton. So thank you all so much for being a part of this project. The next one is going to come out very soon. I'm going to kind of keep on this theme of doing once a month, but it won't always be on the first. It'll kind of move here and there. My plan right now is to do that for a year and get all 12 songs from the album out and just do them all as singles and not actually put out one solid project. I haven't landed on that being definitive yet. I might get sick of doing this and then just put it all out at one time. Who knows? Keep your eyes open. I will definitely let you know via a 10-day countdown, probably, is what I'll do. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for watching this. Thank you for caring enough about me and my work to do, and I hope that it has meant something to you and in some way been healing to you. So, we will see you next time.